What's happening, everybody? Hey, welcome to the exam breakdown. My name is D. Kumar. It is a pleasure to be with you today, Monday, March 3rd, 2025. So we are live. I'm just looking over my shoulder to make sure everything is looking good in the hood, the studio hood. And it looks like it's going well. So, all right. So welcome. This is the segments that we do every week. And what we do is we try to make sure that you're learning the essential pieces to get you through real estate examinations. This is for my real estate brokers, real estate salespersons. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're studying. Hope things are going good for you. Hope you had a nice weekend. The weather was phenomenal where we were. So we were super excited. We went on a little trip over the weekend. It was awesome. We just did a little thing with the kids, and we actually went to this. We traveled to New Jersey. We actually went to the world's largest Hindu temple in the Northeast. It was on 185 acres, and this thing is built on about 60 acres of it. It was this amazing architectural thing that I've ever seen in my life. It was just tons of hand-cut, crazy marble statues and things everywhere. It was jaw-dropping, the amount of architectural wonderment that I just checked out. So it was cool. The kids loved it. It was something educational for them to kind of check out and kind of experience something different, which was very, very cool. So I was very happy that we did that. They had fun at the hotel. It was very cool, man. I had a really good time with them. So hope you and yours are doing well also. And today we're going to be talking about a couple bits on fair housing and anti-discrimination. The point of this is to make sure we were cutting out the fluff, the nonsense, the stuff that you don't need for the exam, the blah stuff. Like, hey, just take this stuff out of there. Many of you guys are studying right now all over the country. This is good for anywhere, anytime, all over the place to get you through. Thank you for the amazing comments that you're leaving on our channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do. You're going to learn a ton of information all about real estate. And this specific content is to get you through the real estate examination. All right, so fair housing is what's on the docket today. Let's jump right in. And we've got a couple of things here, nothing too crazy, but I want to get into it, and I want to make sure that you're learning about the specific items that are relevant to y'all doing this stuff. I'm just going to fix something real quick. All right, hang on. All right, I'm back. So sometimes what ends up happening is like I get whitewashed out with like these screens. It's very funny. And so sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I look like a ghost when I'm going live. It's just, it's a me thing, not a you thing, but I just want to make sure I don't look like I'm like all white and powdery. All right. Not that that's a big deal. If some of y'all are white and powdery, that's cool. All right, so fair housing and anti-discrimination laws. Let's do this. What I want y'all to understand is we need to understand that the Fair Housing Act and anti-discrimination. So anti-discrimination its roots started with the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. So the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was this thing that we passed, this law that ended race discrimination, right? So Civil Rights Act of 1866 ended race discrimination in property ownership. So many times on real estate examinations, they'll ask you this date. So you do need to memorize 1866. And you want to remember that the number one first protected class in the United States was race. There are no exceptions to the Civil Rights Act of 1866. There are no exceptions to race discrimination. That's something you want to know on your examination. There's exemptions to age discrimination. There's exemptions to familial status discrimination. There's exemptions for a lot of other types of protected classes, however, not for race. Race discrimination cases can be taken directly to the federal level, and currently, HUD is the enforcer, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The Fair Housing Act was from that root. Then in 1968 is when fair housing becomes law. They might ask you, in what year did fair housing become law? And that's in the year 1968. So there's two dates here that you need to memorize. 1866, that was race. That was the Civil Rights Act of 1866. 1968 was when fair housing becomes law. So we restated race. Then in 1968 added color, religion, I'll say RN, and then national origin. NO, national origin. Race, color, religion, national origin. These become the original 4 protected classes in the 1968 law. So, Fair Housing Act is a federal law designed to prevent discrimination in housing and ensure that all individuals have equal access to housing opportunities. Its primary purpose is to promote fair and equal treatment for all prospective renters and home buyers. Just kind of giving you a baseline here. Ultimately, in 1988, we further amended the Fair Housing Act to add 2 more protected classes. I'm going to write amendments to the Fair Housing Act in 1988. So, here's how this goes down. Number 1, you want to know that there are 7 protected classes, period, when it comes to the federal Fair Housing Act. Every state potentially could be in line with those 7, or they could add more protected classes to further protect its citizenry. So, in some states, they could also have things like age, sexual orientation, gender identity, veteran or military status, public assistance recipiency. So all of these additional protected classes are up to the state if they want to do it. But every state in the United States has to have the minimum 7 protected classes, that being race, color, religion, national origin, sex, which includes gender identity and sexual orientation, familial status, and disability. Now, familial status and disability were included in the 1988 amendments, and that is something you want to know. So number 1, memorize these 7. Number 2, you want to know those 3 dates, 1988, 1968, and then 1866. You want to remember those 3 dates. Sex was included during the housing and community update law that took place in 1974. You don't really need to memorize that date. I would just say that you also want to know that sex is a protected class. The passage of the ECOA, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, really went hand in hand with this, protecting female borrowers from unscrupulous lending practices that required them to have male co-signers back in the day. And I have a video about the Equal Credit Opportunity Act that we put out in one of our questions. I think it's the NMLS 25 questions that's on our YouTube channel. But you can check it out. And I think it's like question number 57. No. Question number... I don't remember, but it's on there. There's like a whole breakdown of why it's on there. You don't really need to know the historic attributes of this. You just want to know that that the 7 includes sex, and you want to know that the sex was added in 1974. I would downplay this date. I would remember these 3 dates. That's what you really want. They're going to target that. And then they want you to know that in the amendments to the Fair Housing Act, which is 1988, we added familial status and disability. You want to know the definitions further of familial status. And you want to know the definitions or sort of additional things regarding the Americans with Disabilities Act with disabilities. The others you don't really need to worry about outside of memorizing these 7, and they are going to put this on there. So it is on your exam. You do have to memorize this stuff. There are many things that you don't have to memorize about the real estate examination, but this is one of the things you do need to memorize, all right? So just remember that. In addition to those 7 protected classes, redlining, blockbusting, and steering, these are called prohibited practices. These are also on your exam. So you want to know what these prohibited practices are. You want to know that they are on your exam. So you want to know these definitions, and they're going to give you scenarios about these. Now, before I get to the definitions, in addition to this, in your states, many states have laws and penalties that if you are in violation of this, if you're a real estate professional. So for example, in my state of Massachusetts, there's specific penalties for blockbusting because it is a real estate agent's or broker's violation, blockbusting, which is called panic selling. And there are specific times. So if you get busted with blockbusting, there's penalties monetarily, and there's also potential jail time when it comes to blockbusting. So you want to know that you don't want to know those pieces for your states. Every state is different here, so I'm going to let you sort of defer to the state section there. But on the exams, they will absolutely ask you, like, what is redlining? And so redlining is denying loans based on things that are protected class status. So, for example, a lender doesn't make a loan because of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, or disability. And if they don't, that's redlining. You could deny a loan if you're a lender based on qualification standards. So, if you're not qualified to borrow the bank's money, then they can deny you based off of that reasoning. They have to tell you why, but they can deny you on those grounds. But they cannot use those protected class elements. So, not making a loan in an area for reasons other than economic qualification. If you don't economically qualify for the loan, then they don't have to make you the loan. That's just how that works. But if they are making judgments denying you based on reasons other than economic qualifications, then that's simply called redlining. By the way, this is also framed in the insurance industry as well. So sometimes on real estate examinations, they might talk about lenders. Sometimes they might talk about insurance. And no matter what, you want to know definitionally what redlining is. It is on your exam. I'm telling you. So there. Blockbusting is known as panic selling. So they sometimes call this panic selling. And it's based on racial or economic changes. Hey, the real estate agent in the scenario makes a sort of an inference that a certain ethnicity lives in the area. And due to that ethnicity living in the area, the property values are declining. That is panic selling. There's also, economic panic selling as well. But again, they're really going to drill down and they want you to make sure you understand that it's about those protected classes. So you might see a scenario where, a real estate agent's trying to solicit a listing saying, hey, there's a new superhighway about to go in and it's going to cut into your land, which may reduce your value because of the noise and the traffic congestion. You should probably consider selling before this goes through. Is that panic selling? Well, it sort of is, but it's not discriminatory blockbusting. So I've seen lots of different practice questions about this and they kind of split hairs about it. So you do want to remember that there are scenarios that could come up. So you want to ask yourself first, is this scenario violating a discriminatory scenario? Like, is it violating or are they discriminating against a protected class? If the answer is no, then you need to read the answers very carefully because then it might in fact be okay. And so many times what they do in discrimination style questions is they know it's going to elicit some sort of strong emotional reaction to many people. And many times folks will overcompensate for discrimination questions because they don't want to innately be discriminatory by not correctly answering the questions. So this is like a double-edged sword. And test writers know this and they clown people all the time. They catch you all the times with this stuff. So stay calm, stay cool, read the answers first, then read the questions and try to figure out what they're really talking about here. Then ask yourself, hey, are they talking about violating any of the protected classes? And then if they are, then you can drill down to figure out if this is a discriminatory practice. The final one is something called steering. Steering is directing buyers or renters based on protected status, not for economic qualifications. So I'm going to write not for economic qualifications. So if you're not economically qualified to rent an apartment in a very high-end area, you don't have enough money to rent a, say an apartment in an area you're looking in is like, $10,000 a month, and your budget is $2,500 a month, and then it's completely fine for the real estate professional to say, I'm sorry, you don't have the budget for this. Let's look elsewhere. Is that cool? And you can be like, yeah, that's cool. I couldn't afford it anyway. And so that they steered you away from that area. That's not discriminatory. If they steered you away from the area because of some protected class reason, hey, D, don't live here. You don't want to live here. All the other people don't look like you. You can be much better off in this community. Or something like that. It's even weird for me to talk like that, but it just feels funny. But the reality is, hey, just take my money. It's good in every community, man. All right, so the reality here is steering Again, it's all about protected class, not about economic qualifications. So really the litmus test is about economic qualifications, and you want to make sure you're testing yourself to make sure that that's not being brought up. And they will bring that up, by the way. All right, let's check out a question. Here we go. The Fair Housing Act was built upon which earlier law that first addressed civil rights and property rights in the United States? Letter A, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Letter B, the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Letter C, the Sherman Antitrust Act. Letter D, the Mrs. Murphy Act. And the answer? Letter B, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, where I asked you if you could memorize this and remember that it was about race. And there are no exemptions to the Civil Rights Act of 1866. They want you to know that. In addition to all of this, and I'm not covering these today, I do want you to know the exemptions to the Fair Housing Act. Exemptions are scenarios where it is okay, in essence, to be discriminatory. Under what conditions? Example would be a private club. An example would be a religious organization. An example would be an over 55 community. So, these are all situations and scenarios where they carve out the allowances for these. For example, if the presence of small children would be a burden to an aging co-tenant in the building, then you can deny them housing. So there are carve-outs and exemptions, and the states might have further or shrink them somewhat. So you want to know those for sure. Those are called the exemptions. However, racial discrimination, there is no exemption for that. And don't forget, HUD is the enforcer. Question number 2. Which of the following is not a protected class under the Federal Fair Housing Act? Letter A, race. Letter B, national origin. Letter C, veteran status. Letter D, familial status. And the answer? Letter C, veteran status. Now, veteran status may be a protected class in the state that you are taking this exam in, so you might need to know that. And yes, many times you do have to memorize the additional protected classes that the state requires you to know. But focus entirely on the most buzzworthy ones, and those will probably serve you well, because sometimes states might have 9, 10 additional protected classes. So you don't have to, I would cut it down a little bit as far as memorizing them. And then after a while of you studying this, you're going to get better at understanding what are protected classes and what are not. So don't fret this stuff. It's just a little bit of memorization, not much. All right, so that was the next question. The next thing I want to talk about here is advertising and this fair housing poster. And you are absolutely going to see a reference to the equal housing opportunity poster. This is something that we see on in real estate offices, when you walk into lenders, you walk into your local bank. These are places, anybody that deals with housing, this poster has to be up there, posted prominently. So HUD requires real estate offices, brokers, property managers, and lenders to display the fair housing poster in a visible location. You want to know that. The poster reinforces compliance with the Fair Housing Act and informs clients of their rights. It says right here, it is illegal to discriminate against any person because of race, color, religion, sex, handicaps, familial status, or national origin. Failure to display this sign can be considered evidence of non-compliance in discrimination cases. So what happens is a tester could, in fact, walk into an office undercover to double verify things. Like somebody makes a claim that the firm discriminated against them. The tester will be assigned to the case, and they might physically go there or send somebody to go into the office to see if they're being discriminated against. And then they're looking for compliance. Example, they're going to look around and say, hey, there was no prominent evidence of the equal housing opportunity poster prominently displayed. And that would constitute a violation. And it would also potentially create the burden of proof to now have been shifted to the organization now trying to defend the fact that they didn't discriminate versus the fact that they did. So it shifts this logic and burdens. You want to make sure that you understand that this is what could happen and that this is the poster that has to be prominently displayed. This goes hand in hand with advertising rules when it comes down to discrimination. So you will see some scenarios on real estate examinations about, is it okay to say this versus is it okay to say this? Not allowed, not permitted versus permitted advertising phrases. No discriminatory advertising language can ever appear inside of an ad. The describing the home, not the person you think should be living there. So we can talk all about the property and its attributes, but we cannot talk about the ideal homeowner that would live inside of this place. So it would be incorrect to say things like perfect home for a young professional. Cannot say that. It is okay to say spacious one-bedroom condo in a vibrant downtown location. It would be incorrect, for example, to say the perfect size for retirees who are looking to downsize and be walking distance to town. It would be correct to say lovely, cozy home, cozy always means small, in a beautiful neighborhood, close to parks and local businesses. And note also, social media and digital ads must follow fair housing laws and cannot target or exclude any protected classes. So even though in social media advertising and pay-per-click, for example, you can really drill down deep into the demographics and the psychographics of who might be purchasing, and you're targeting your ad specifically, but you have to be very careful about not discriminating and not filtering folks based off of protected class status. All right, let's check out an advertising question example. Question number 3. Which of the following housing advertisement statements is least likely to violate fair housing laws? Letter A, small studio apartment available for single occupancy only. Letter B, situated in a family-friendly neighborhood. Letter C, within walking distance of 2 churches. Letter D, ideal for young professionals without kids. This is a bit of a tricky question. And again, because you're reading these and you're like, these all kind of feel a little weird. So now read the question. Which of the following housing advertisement statements is least likely to violate the fair housing laws? And the answer? Letter A, small studio apartment available for single occupancy only. Now, why was this one the correct answer? The answer is that in this scenario, single occupancy is making reference to occupancy requirements. So sanitary codes will delineate or dictate how many occupants can legally live in a unit based off of square footage and the amount of waste that the unit produces. And so state sanitary codes will always trump the amount of people. So if you have a family, and let's say a family can make do in a one-bedroom apartment, which many probably could, right? Well, the state sanitary codes might say only 2 people can dwell in this unit. This is only for single occupancy only. So putting in single occupancy only is really defining it based off of the sanitary code requirements many times in its jurisdiction, and therefore it is okay. And again, this is least likely to violate the fair housing laws. Could somebody complain and say, hey, they discriminated on familial status basis? The answer is absolutely. But when the enforcement authority, comes to investigate this case, they're going to find that the state sanitary codes only allowed for a single occupancy user, and therefore that's why they'll be forgiven for that, because it's not considered discriminatory if there are other requirements which, deal with sanitation, etc. Everything else here, situated in a family-friendly neighborhood, is familial status discrimination. Within walking distance of 2 churches, the walking distance piece is disability discrimination, potentially, violation of religion, right? Ideal for young professionals without kids, again, is familial status discrimination. So we really couldn't get to all of this. They were really kind of knocking around here with familial status. And again, which is another reason why you definitely want to know familial status as a definition to what that is. Sorry, I just want to go back to this slide. Again, situated in a family-friendly neighborhood, situated within walking distance of two churches. So this is religion and this is disability. Young professionals without children, that is familial status. So there's a couple of examples here of familial status. So I really want you to know the definition of familial status because that is something that comes up. You want to know those nuances. And there's also that exemption for over 55 communities and familial status exemptions. So you want to know those as well. They will hit you with familial status. Trust me. All right. All right. So that was the exam breakdown. I really wanted to give you this fast, awesome, condensed fair housing thing. We were talking about it, and we know that there's a lot of confusion with fair housing, and sometimes there could be a lot of information there. So what do you need to know versus what you don't need to know? So I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you found the time that you just spent with me to yield you some success. And I always wish all of my students good luck with your studies and good luck on your tests. And so listen, please, if you can, subscribe to our channel if you already haven't. If you have, my goodness, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, our entire staff is just thrilled about how awesome things are growing, how things are benefiting the consumers of this content. People are passing their examinations and moving forward with their lives, getting past the problems and getting to where they're closing deals and everything else. Now, listen, this is just for all of you out there. Things are there's a lot of changes that are happening, and those changes, if you just calm yourselves and look at it from a business perspective, are potentially huge goldmine opportunities that are about to be placed in front of those that are willing to accept those opportunities. So if you are struggling to get through this exam, and that's one of the things that's stopping you, then I hope you continue to visit our channel. It's going to make a difference. People are passing all over the United States, and we couldn't be happier. Now, that being said, if you have any questions, any comments, any topics that you would like us to cover, leave them in the comments. We absolutely read them. We continually update, and we're looking to see if there's anything we can do to serve our community better. Don't forget to check out our community posts, by the way, where we're giving you daily questions that are on target with these examinations to help you. So you're getting like one question a day, and we go ahead at the end of the week and we kind of give a rating of like the best questions of the week and kind of give feedback on how those questions performed. All right, so check that out. We're dropping our community post first version of this tonight, as a matter of fact, and then we're going to continue to drop them out and work on these on a regular weekly basis in conjunction with our community posts, which are fantastic and are helping a lot of folks, even with one question a day, helping them get through this examination. Many times they'll say questions like this just showed up on my actual exam. So, and again, I don't have copies of the examination. I'm not professing that I do. I just know this stuff after training tens of thousands of people over the years. I absolutely love teaching, and another reason why I do this is because of that love. So if there's anything we can do, we will do it. Thank you very much for tuning in to our exam breakdown today, Monday, March 3rd, the year 2025. Again, on Wednesdays, we do the exam breakdown for mortgage loan originators, and that's coming up. I forget the topic. Sorry about that, but we will be doing it, and I believe we're doing it around 1 o'clock as well. Just a little bit of a shift in time this week, just trying to get a couple of meetings in for other big projects that I'm working on. I'd be happy to share them with you. Actively involved in some stuff right now with cool deals and cool opportunities all over the place, and we just had some weird scheduling things because we traveled this weekend, so I apologize. But I will see you on Wednesday if you're studying for that NMLS examination, and we will see you soon. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you in the next video.